free, free Palestine.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. We begin with a large union-led rally in New York City calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. It took place a few days before Christmas.
Free Palestine.
No more weapons, no more war. Ceasefire's what we're calling for. No more.
We're demanding genocide.
United Electrical Radio Machine Workers of America are in the house. Coming here from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to stand in solidarity with you and our movement to demand an end to the violence in Gaza. We are here because labor unions around the world are demanding a permanent ceasefire now.
The people of Gaza are currently living through the fifth attack by Israel since 2008. Gaza has been under an indefinite blockade by Israel since 2008. 77 days that the people of Gaza have endured genocide. 77 days of constant bombing. 77 days of no sleep, of murder.
Any military action that will result in further loss of life, including the ground invasion, bombing, and use of white phosphorus on civilians.
The AFL-CIO has invested billions of dollars into the Israeli government. That's billions of dollars. They're way past time to divest that now, and that's probably part of the reason they're so quiet. Maybe they're worried about their investments rather than the planet and people who live here and need to have decency and justice.
The minute the war began, the minute the war crimes and atrocities took over, our members took to the streets. They demanded action at their units, at their shops, at their locals, and ultimately from us at the International. We could not remain silent. We could not remain ignorant, and we could not remain on the side of oppressors.
Jewish folks who are here today are part of a legacy of Jews who have always been part of the labor movement. And our politicians need to find their humanity and call for an immediate ceasefire right now.
We have signed on to an end for military aid and to endorse BDS.
Shame on our government for vetoing a ceasefire.
At the UAW this year, we were able to reform and bring democracy to our union. We would not be here today without democracy, member-led democracy. We would not be here if it wasn't for the stand-up strike, which empowered not only our members, but workers across the United States. And again, we would not be here if we were not listening to the demands of the poor, the oppressed, and workers across the world who want to be part of a renewed working class movement for not just national, but international solidarity and justice.
We must restore access to water, food, electricity, housing, and healthcare to the 2.2 million people in Gaza, half of whom are children.
Instead of listening to the people that elected them, the Biden administration and corporate Democrats are cutting deals with right-wing Republicans to impose extreme, cruel sanctions on migrants at our borders, many of whom are fleeing the legacy of U.S. military conflict in their own countries.
77 days of complete erasure and displacement. 77 days of loss and grief that will last them their entire lives, even after.
We, the United Electrical Radio Machine Workers of America, demand that our government call for a ceasefire, halt unconditional aid to Israel and immediately restore the basic rights of Palestinians who have been deprived of food, water, fuel, and life-saving medical aid.
The reason the labor movement has been slow to non-responsive to hostile to these calls for peace is because we line up behind the politicians who are either too cowardly or supportive of the genocide that is occurring at the moment.
We see this as a working class struggle, and we must engage. An injury to one is an injury to all. We need to end the military aid, end the genocide, end the apartheid, end the murder, and we demand peace now. Stop the bombs. We demand peace now. Stop the bombs.
Ceasefire now, solidarity forever. Let's get more and more unions behind us.
This video was produced by Dave Lippman, and we recommend you subscribe to his YouTube channel. These are a few photos of a protest that took place in New York City on Christmas Day. The mayor of New York says there's been near 500 protests in New York City since October 7th. Right on. Now to New York City on December 28th, a solemn funeral procession. It began with people taking part of Sixth Avenue, walking up in rows 2 by 2, dressed in black. There were very few signs. There were some pictures of children, mostly Palestinian, of course. A few were Jewish children. Many carried white bundles to represent some of the 10,000 children killed. Let me repeat that again. 10,000 children killed by Israeli forces. The next sections were live streamed on Facebook. Another view of the march. Perhaps 1,000 people taking over the street, going up Sixth Avenue, and now down Broadway. Deliberately very few signs, only one or two. The white bundles can symbolize the children, the babies who have been killed. One group, we're near Times Square, and the New York Times has not yet had a report about the atrocity in Al-Nasr Hospital in Gaza City, where the babies, the premature babies, were left under the assurance of the Israeli authorities that they would be evacuated, only to be found, the remains to be found weeks later during the one and only ceasefire. The Israelis deny it happened, even though many newspapers and media have covered it. One of their spokespersons said it was a rumor. The New York Times has not reported on it. Washington Post did a lot of reporting. The first person who saw this, the first journalist, was from an outfit from the UAE. People told him something bad had happened in that hospital, which was forced to evacuate, a war crime in itself. And the journalist came and did video for maybe 2 minutes. The smell was more than he could stand. This was around the 20th of November. At the end of the march, 200 effigies of the babies were carefully placed on the ground. Of course, they represented only a tiny fraction of the infants killed by U.S. bombs dropped by Israel. Effigies being put on the ground to represent the babies and children killed in Gaza and who are dying at an incredible rate. Perhaps 1,000 people marched, took over part of the street, many carrying these effigies. It took 30 minutes for the marchers to pass by our camera. Certainly this is something that can be done in cities all across the country. These are pictures of individual children, both Palestinian and Jewish, who have been killed needlessly because of the root cause of this fascist idea that Palestine belongs only to one people. The ceremony concluded with people singing "Ceasefire Now." It's been a month now, and the New York Times hasn't said a word about the Al-Nasr hospital. That's the facility where the Israelis forced out doctors and nurses and promised them that the premature babies who couldn't be evacuated safely would be taken care of. Nothing of the sort happened, and the babies all died. This is artist Marc Nelson's drawing of what one baby might have looked like when the babies were abandoned. Not a single media outlet in the world would publish what journalist Mohammed Balouch found when he entered that hospital ward on November 24th. Photos of the remains were pixelated in the Daily Mail, and that's what we've done here. The Washington Post and CNN have had articles about the atrocity. A petition campaign has been created, directed at the New York Times, asking them to report on this. Perhaps the Times could demand the Israelis let them go through records in that hospital and find the names of those babies who were killed. Perhaps the Times could interview Mohammed Balouch. In December, he was shot by an Israeli sniper. Perhaps a New York Times interview could keep him alive. Starvation is the new threat for people in Gaza. UN agencies recognize 5 stages of mass hunger. These agencies say that 500,000 people in the Gaza Strip are now in the stage called catastrophe. The only stage worse is famine, where masses of people die daily. In another report, UNRWA says it is only able to feed 145,000 people a day in Gaza, and that the needs among Gaza's 2 million people are much, much higher. Human Rights Watch says Israel is using starvation as a deliberate war tactic. On the well-watched YouTube channel of Owen Jones, there was an interview by him with Omar Barghouti, the Palestinian most known for his leadership in the BDS movement. In reflecting on the refusal of most of the world powers to punish Israeli genocide, Barghouti brought up an idea, that of suspending Israel from membership in the United Nations. He said this happened to old apartheid South Africa. I looked it up, and indeed it was so. The RSA was suspended in 1974 and didn't regain membership for 20 years, until Mandela had been brought back and apartheid overthrown. Should the state of Israel be removed from the United Nations? Tuesday, the 2nd of January, 2024, there may be a vote in the Bridgeport City Council to call for a ceasefire in Israel's genocidal violence against Palestinians in Gaza. The measure passed through committee. The public again will be allowed to speak at 6:15 at 45 Lion Terrace in Bridgeport. Here's a meme drawn or created by AI with a jarring New Year's wish. We'll close with an image I hope I will see one day. I have a dream. That's our program for today. Follow New York City's sterling example and go out in the new year and demonstrate often. I'm Stanley Heller for the Struggle Video News.